This is Film Center, your number one show for real entertainment industry news. No fluff, all facts. Now, here are your anchors, Derek Johnson II and Nicholas Killian.
Hey everyone, welcome to Film Center. My name's Derek Johnson II, and this is your number one place for studio news. And I'm here with...
This is Kenny from Madness & Company.
Madness & Company. We are here live at the Comic-Con, LA Comic-Con. If you're listening to this, probably the LA Comic-Con might have passed by. However, you can still check out Madness & Company and everything that's really great about them on their website and any other socials that they may have. Let's just get right into it. I'm here with the artist and owner, right? You have a very interesting setup here. It's just half hip-hop, half kabuki style things that's going on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself first.
Cool. Hey, my name's Kenny. I'm from Madness & Company. Madness Company is a merchandise and apparel brand started by my wife and I. Dynamic duo, Kenny and Indy. You'll see it on a lot of our shirts and our products. You'll see a little signature there. But overall, Madness & Company is a way for us to do business together while also being able to develop myself as an artist and just see how far we can take the brand.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people who listen to the show are either industry professionals or they want to get into the industry, and we focus mainly on movies and television.
Yeah.
Movies, television, entertainment industry. However, in this industry, it's very difficult, especially as someone who runs a business, to do with family members. In the entertainment industry, there's a whole bunch of controversies between people who are trying to work together but are also married. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that dynamic and how this really came to be about? Was it inspired by YouTube or...
So I definitely have seen a lot of brands recently blowing up where it's a lot of two-man teams. Sometimes it's just a guy and his brother, might be a guy and his best friend, it might be two women, a mother and a daughter. However, I realized that it can be done by two people. Throughout college, I can say my wife's been running events for a very long time. She's very business oriented, and as far as visuals and just from the creative side, there aren't really many things that I see that I can't make. So having both of those fields covered, we were like, hey, let's see how it will work if we were to go into business together. I would say one of the best things we did though is instead of cutting ties with all of our jobs and ending everything that we're doing professionally, we decided to do this on the side starting out. By doing that, you take away the pressure of, oh, this has to work, or, oh, we have to make money. It's all about any money that's made goes back into the business, and then we re-strategize. It's just the only thing you're really sacrificing at that point is man hours. There's no real money. There's no real pressure that really can make the business less fun. So at that point, it's just, let's see if we can solve this puzzle. If we solve it, boom, we've done it. It's a success.
So we're recording here at Comic-Con because indie creators are taking over like a larger and larger portion of the industry.
Yeah.
I've said this on the radio show before where I have this prediction that basically studios will be replaced by indie people.
Yeah,
just in general because they can get closer with their fan base and things like that. Do you find that it's difficult to grow a fan base against, because you're here in LA Comic-Con, it's no small feat. I'm saying, did you find it difficult to grow to this size? Like, how long have you been doing this?
So I think it's been a steady rate. So we've been doing this, this would be September would be year 5 for us. We started this in 2018. And if you're ever on our page, you can follow us at Madness & Co. But you'll be able to see the process of how we've grown from selling out of a bar, in the back of a bar, to selling a couple shirts to getting to this point. And I think the way we did that was by creating, instead of me making a comic and trying to sell you on a comic, we created really rad shirts, really rad characters, and people wanted to know more about those characters, and then we continued to flesh.
So your strategy was merchandise first,
yes,
and to express interest into the story.
Exactly.
It's interesting because on this show we've also previously talked about transmedia, which you have one major story that gets into different mediums and transfer from all this different stuff. And you're one of the first ones that I've seen or heard of where you say, I'm going to start with the merch first.
Yeah.
Where did that? You're not from Los Angeles.
No, I'm from Atlanta originally.
From Atlanta originally. Was there anything, so you from Atlanta, grew up there?
Actually, I grew up from Cincinnati. We actually moved to Atlanta, I would say about 7 years ago. One of the best decisions I've made.
So was there anything that when you were younger that made you say, oh, this is what I'm really into?
Oh yeah, definitely. The entire premise of Madness & Company is an amalgamation of everything I grew up with, and that's anything from movies to cartoons to comic books. It's all clutched in there, to music. It's all in there together, and you'll see a lot of the Easter eggs pushed out through our different items. I would definitely say that, yes, we started with merch first, but I would say an even better description of that would be we started with characters first. I know everybody, when you're in the back of class, oh, this is my character that I made. He's got chainsaw arms, whatever you wanted your character to be like, that's what we started with. We built the world around them, and then once I had that archetype, I could then flesh out the story and really tell, okay, this is what I want this character to be. I'm able to go deeper now.
It's such an interesting tactic because a lot of indie creators are doing something what the larger studios are doing on a lower level.
Yeah.
And by lower, I don't mean quality-wise, but just in size.
Yeah.
And
Smaller
it's
scale,
interesting because, and even with this radio show, we started originally with just straight up audio.
Gotcha.
Before we started moving to other things, before we started doing TV. Now, I personally have a background in working with studios and like movies and television, but this whole film center thing, we started off just purely audio, and you started off with merch.
Yeah.
It's amazing to hear someone saying, like, okay, I'm going to start with, because usually merch is the end goal for a lot of people, but that was your starting point. Did you have any like inspirations to do it that way, or was it like, I just want to do something different?
There was a mixed bag that was going. I'm a graphic designer full-time. I've worked with Apple, I've worked for CNN, I worked for a lot of larger companies. However, through those, I never had full autonomy of the design direction, nor was I able to figure out what my specific art style was. There were two fronts that I wanted done through Madison Company. I wanted to create really cool items that me as a kid would have loved to have, while at the same time having a vehicle that I could put these characters and put these ideas on a garment for. So as an artist, it's something crazy being able to sell a high quality product and then also see people wear your drawings at the same time.
Yeah, it's probably really cool.
Yeah, it's surreal almost. It's really surreal.
Yeah. What's interesting is that a lot of successful professionals like yourself, they always start off getting the experience first. If you're listening to the show and you listen to a show, a lot of people that we interview before they break off on their own, they have experience doing other things. Like I started off writing for TV and movies.
No kidding.
Prior to branching out on my own and doing my own thing.
Gotcha.
What was it like? Say, okay, I'm going to take a step, into this more indie creative mode. Was it because you're handling two things at once? There's a lot of people who are probably industry professionals. A lot more and more industry professionals are breaking off into their own stuff. When was the moment you were like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just move farther and further into my own thing and kind of leave this making stuff other people behind?
I think there was a time where, every artist wants to work for a bigger company. Maybe you want to work for Cartoon Network, or maybe you want to work for Marvel Studios. And you learn to draw those characters. You learn the different art styles that mimic to show that you can keep up with their artists that currently are employed there. But through that, after a while, I realized that there are so many people trying to do that, but I can create my own characters, have full autonomy, have full direction of these stories, and that further solidifies the decision of being like, okay, if I'm going to step away from Apple and CNN, if I'm going to step away from these bigger industries in graphic design, it only makes sense for me to create these unique stories that are fully my own.
Do you think that gave you a good level of training? Because I try to tell a lot of people, you can start off indie.
True.
There's nothing wrong with starting off indie.
Not at all.
But when you work for these bigger companies, there's like a level of discipline, there's a higher level of scrutiny. You know what I'm saying? I remember getting notes upon notes and being like, oh my gosh, I just wish they would just accept what I do.
Yeah.
But now looking back at it, I'm like, okay, this was showing me how to get to that professional level, showing me that my first draft probably can still be better.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
is you think that discipline is something you take into your business today?
Yeah, I can definitely say that. I think I haven't even thought about it that way. Working in those industries, obviously you have to be polished. You have to make sure that you have all your P's and Q's set up properly. But as far as them helping train me to better myself as an artist, yeah, I can definitely say that. I think I have a much stricter level of quality that I adhere to as a result of that.
Have you been drawing like your whole life, or?
Oh man, so that's a great question. So what actually got me into drawings was 3rd grade. Kenny couldn't draw a dragon to save his life, had a whole meltdown, ended up leaving, and then I ended up just practicing all day to draw like the artists and the art and the cartoons that I'm seeing on TV till I could get to that point. And I would definitely recommend that to all artists. There's nothing wrong with learning what makes the things that inspire you good. Practice those line works. Your natural subconscious is gonna deviate from it, and you're gonna figure out your own style. But there's nothing wrong with learning from what's already working, what's already popular.
If you guys are listening, he's talking a lot about learning from the professionals.
Yeah,
right.
big time.
There's a thought process, at least when I was in school, given to me by Kevin Mack, who's done some stuff with Marvel and a whole bunch of other, and he was teaching me how to write. He was saying that whatever you want to learn how to do, the training is out there. You just see who you look up to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whoever you look up to try not to copy per se,
Yeah.
but understand what they're doing in their process and how their designs look, and that's your training program.
Yeah, that's 100%. There's so much information that artists are putting out there nowadays. If you can see a speed drawing of an artist, there's so much you can learn of seeing their
Well, when
entire
we were
process.
younger, you couldn't see it on YouTube.
Didn't have that. So
When
back
we
then,
were younger,
you're
we didn't
going
have
through the
that.
comics and the pages and watching the movies to develop your own notes.
By
but
putting the white piece of paper over the DBT magazine so you can trace it.
yeah,
and
when
see
they,
what
had
it's like.
when they had the light boxes and you could see through the paper, you're like, oh, this
my
is
gosh.
technology.
Yeah, you thought I was living in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting is, especially this whole weekend, we're really pushing to talk to a lot of different indie creators.
Yeah.
And something that I'm always comparing the indie side
Mm-hmm.
to, and I would say indie with heavy quotation marks, because a lot of indie people,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of studio people leave to go indie and then they go right back in the studio
Yeah.
as soon as they're bigger. But there's a difference between how they market themselves, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, with studios and with indie, you have this ability to say either I'm going to make what I don't see,
Yeah.
or I'm going to make towards market. Studios always making towards market. Do you find yourself, because you used to work for larger companies, do you find yourself often making more things that you want to see, like you said earlier, like what I want to see when I was a kid? Or do you see yourself like, oh, you know what, this is selling more, this type of design sells more, maybe I should make more stuff like this for market?
So I think there's an amazing balance that has to happen there. As an artist, you know, you're going to create your own designs, and when people rock with it, you get locked into being like, okay, I have good taste, and you do. As an artist, you're going to have a unique taste. If you want to make a country-style fighting game, that's uniquely you, and if people rock with it, no one else can take that away from you. However, as I'm creating these designs and as I'm creating these layouts, we're developing fans, we're developing a community, and they love the same things. That's why they rock with it. So I have to also respect their point of view a lot of times, where they're like, hey, we'd love to see this in
How do
this
you
color.
I find that balance? Because
Oh,
for every creator,
yeah.
it's different.
Yeah, I would say definitely talking with them. A lot of times we'll have a shirt where, you know, or a design where it's almost done, but there's that last bit of decision making we can't quite figure out, and we'll throw it to the community. And a lot of times they're like, oh, this will be a great idea, and they have feedback. There's also artists in our community, and talking with them helps push the brand overall, you know, into that next direction. I've already done the groundwork as an artist to have my characters out there and keep pushing their stories, but when it comes to creating like really great renditions of the art and merchandise, the community definitely helps along the way.
You have a very unique art style.
Yeah.
There's an issue right now that a lot of big studio productions are looking the exact same, kind of.
Yeah.
Some people are calling it the Disney effect.
Oh man.
So
yeah.
where the 3D animation looks like the same. But if you look back in the early 2000s, like when we were younger,
Yeah.
this stuff looked different. They were still doing 2D animation.
Yeah.
Treasure Planet was a thing. Journey to Atlantis was a thing, and then they cut it all off to focus on more on 3D animation.
Yeah, because it was easy to pump it out.
But now even DreamWorks is trying to. There's a lot of people who work at DreamWorks who came from Disney, obviously,
True,
right?
yeah.
They left with Steven Spielberg when he decided to make DreamWorks.
Yeah.
But now we're in this zone where it seems like the artists aren't allowed to really express themselves artistically.
Man.
And instead, they're just trying to do what works. And it's amazing to see something like the animated Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
Where they decide to break out and do something different and unique. And for some reason, the studios are flabbergasted by this. Why do you think they're pushing this standard animation? Because you have a very unique style.
Yeah.
So why do you think they're pushing this standard animation instead of breaking out into styles like maybe like your own?
I think this highlights how important designers and creatives are. I think we're able to see and we're able to create things that are unique and are loved by the people. However, without creatives, a lot of people are just going to look at the numbers of what works. If I see that Inside Out style works, I'm just going to create the same thing that looks like Inside Out. There'd be no reason for me to think beyond that.
Right.
However, when you give it to the artist, you end up with stuff like the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Also, yes.
The artist had a full field day with that. They had as much fun as they wanted. They gave its own flavor, its own vibe, and it was absolutely one of the top movies when it came out. Like
Yeah.
it speaks for itself. Yeah.
What do you think is preventing those studios from being more encouraging about unique art?
I think right now all the studios fell into kind of the, all right, let's only use what works. But now that the studios are starting to see, okay, letting the artists work is starting to work. I think we're going to start seeing more studios actually do that. I think there's a transition starting where it's, oh, Spider-Man worked. What if we let them do it again? Oh, Ninja Turtles worked. Oh, what if we let them do it again?
It's building confidence.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen
Yeah.
where the decision making is less cookie cutter and now let the artists go crazy. But I do think if the artists go too wild, there's going to be a natural balance where the studios are like, this movie kind of flopped. Let's go with what works and let's find that balance between culling the artist while at the same time allowing that bit of freedom. I think it's a spectrum.
So there's in entertainment.
Yeah.
There's a renaissance about every 20 years. You know, people always talk about the movies from the 50s, the big like epics and stuff like that, like Ben-Hur and stuff. Then people don't really talk about the 60s too much because there's overshadowed, and the 80s too much because it's overshadowed by the 70s.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones. You have The Godfather. 70s was going crazy, right?
People are trying to get back to that, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have another renaissance in the 90s, right?
Yes.
Quentin Tarantino was one of the big leaders in that, you know what I'm saying? And then what's interesting is that the next quote-unquote renaissance started with, the superhero really big was blown up with Spider-Man, but around 2010, Spider-Man was the quote-unquote first start with the 2008
Blade.
Quote-unquote. But Blade was really there before, that's what I'm saying, right? Happened in 2010s, and now it seems now in 2023, we might be on the cups of another revolution. Now, do you feel like the same way or no?
It's interesting. I think we saw a bit of a renaissance with how Marvel completely changed the way that cinematic universes work. I think a lot of movies also started to play with that, like Glass, for example. And that was its own start. They started to make it a universe of that, and seeing these movies and these series actually talk. I think we're seeing people experiment. And maybe it isn't as far as to say it's a renaissance, maybe an arc within an era, but I do think people are trying to develop a new way to provide entertainment that we may have not seen before. I've never seen TV shows be connected to multiple movies, be connected to all that pushes all the lore together. That's something new. Now, is that a renaissance? Maybe not, but I do think it will be the start of future renditions and how we push entertainment,
As a professional artist yourself, what do you see, like, when do you see something on a TV that or movie that actually catches your interest artistically? Because, like I said, there's a huge consensus right now, especially with a lot of fans, that things are looking the same. How do you see something? How do you look at something on the television or movies and you're like, okay, this is something that's unique and that's connecting with me personally? Because you're also a professional artist. So the way you're looking at images, the way other people look at images differently. Like for myself, being mostly a writer-director and doing really a lot of writing, I'm always like, it's not like I can turn it off. You know what I'm saying? I'm always thinking about the story. Right? But because the consensus right now is about art, and there's a huge concern about unique art, you know what I'm saying? How do you think, I think that this is something that I could take away from?
Okay, are you thinking from a live action or more like an animated standpoint?
Either one. Either one. Because you seem to have a lot of references in your art.
I think it, like you said, it's hard to turn it off, and you never really can see past the kind of analyzing standpoint whenever you're watching something. But I'll say I'm always pulling it in. So I would say the most example right now would be Bullet Train. I just saw Bullet Train not too long ago, and seeing the storytelling. At first, I thought it was a Quentin Tarantino film by how it was written. But I love that movies are starting to become aware of their tropes, of the different stereotypes that are in there, of the way they tell their stories. But they double down in that, and they don't always do it from a comical standpoint, but they dive deeper into all right, we know how edgy this is, we know how over the top this is, but we're gonna make it work in this era. For example, during the era where samurai movies were amazing, that was an amazing era. However, now when it comes to movies, the main character of the movie also realizes how absolutely crazy it is to see a samurai in that movie. So they'll comment on that. What is happening here?
Like a little more meta.
So it's like, it's definitely more meta. I think that's the thing. Seeing how meta things have been in entertainment a lot these days, that's what I'm pulling from. Wow, I love that things are a lot more aware now, and they're
Would you say that? Because you, like I said, you have a lot of things, a lot of references in your art. Do you have some main inspirations?
Oh yeah, I would say, man, that's a great. So obviously anime, a lot of the classic anime, Dragon Ball Z, Mazinger, pulling from a lot of those sources. But in the way that I pull from them isn't just like, oh, I want my guy to be a giant robot. It's more so in things that people don't really see, like in the intro of the anime, or in the ways that they set up certain angles where there might be the protagonist and you'll see the robot silhouette in the background. Those were artful ways of highlighting big characters, or those ways of doing storytelling through music, like all those things
your art
matter.
reminds me a lot of Samurai Jack.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is this term that I heard for the first time in my life here at LACon, where they're saying Afro-May.
Afro-May?
Afro-May, where it's
I've actually never heard that.
African-American hip-hop style, things like that, being combined with anime. Almost the only thing that I can really think of, like when I think of Afro-May, peak Afro-May, would... Again, have you ever heard of this before?
Oh, no. This is first I've heard of the term, but now I can see the whole Rolodex of all the things that will fall into that category.
The Afro-May, when I see Afro-May, I think of the Boondocks.
Yeah.
I think of Samurai, Afro Samurai.
Cannon Busters.
Yeah, Cannon Busters, stuff like that. Do you see a rise in Afro-May?
I do. I'm seeing a lot more
Because
black
a lot
artists.
of black artists that we've been talking to have been like, anime is a big inspiration. Why do you
Yeah.
think it's anime that's such a huge inspiration to the African American culture comparative to others?
So this will be an interesting kind of a monologue I'm going to go on. I think,
Monologue away.
I think a lot of African Americans first experienced anime through Dragon Ball Z, and I think it connected with us in ways that we didn't expect at the time. Because you'll see a varied spectrum of black people kind of love Dragon Ball Z for different reasons. You'll see super hood guys be like, man, I love Dragon Ball Z. I still rock with Vegeta.
Yeah.
And you'll see super geeks that are like walking around in Goku outfits.
Right.
But it's still for that whole spectrum. And I think there's an underdog story that's been prominent in a lot of early anime that, may not be as prevalent now, but I think it's still one of the main cruxes of anime, and that's the underdog story. And with us being black people feeling like the underdog, I think when
Yeah.
you see a character persevere constantly, take those hits, train and do his best, it fills you with a hope that it can be a little kind of silly, but I do think it fills you with a hope that you didn't realize you needed at that time, and you pull from it. So training and seeing characters like Goku, seeing these anime characters work hard, might not succeed but continue to push through, it gives us inspiration, and I think we continue to pull from that. But then after a while, we start to love anime just for what it is. Oh, wow, this is a creative craft. I still love the underdog story, but now these other characters resonate with me, whether because they're super cool or because of the way they navigate life.
Yeah.
But I think it all started with how we pulled in with our first anime for a lot of people, which is Dragon Ball Z, or which is Naruto, seeing that underdog story.
Yeah, it's so incredible because once again, I haven't heard Afro-May until like literally yesterday. This is December 3rd that we're recording this. December 2nd, 23rd, I was like, Afro-May? But it made so much sense
It does.
as soon as I heard it. You even think about things like Kanye West's Power.
Yeah.
When it's the whole music video is
It's
Akira.
Akira, yep.
And you hear, and this interesting thing about African Americans, this quote, and I forget who said it, but basically, to be an African American is to be a race and a people without a home. Because
100%.
African Americans, we can't really relate to Africa.
We cannot.
We haven't been there in generations, hundreds and hundreds of years.
We're learning
And
about
yet-
what would be our own culture in the same way we would learn about any other culture. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
we're new to it.
And yet, at the same time, we are American.
Yeah.
But a lot of other American minorities, like Asians or like Hispanics, they can say, "Oh, I'm from Italy," or
Right.
"I'm from specifically Guatemala."
They have
or they say,
a
"I'm
home."
from Burma." They can
Right.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna go home to my home country." We don't know where our countries
No,
are.
no.
So there's this possibly stipulation, and you gotta let me know if you agree with this.
Yeah.
That it's okay. That's a faraway land, and it's not home to us, but also we connect with that. It's okay. You know what? I'm also not American, but I am American.
I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. I think I was just talking to another animation studio, the main director of that. He's from Nigeria, but he does have a home he's coming from. I think with us being black African Americans that are born and raised in America, even down to like our last names, I
Yeah.
don't think my great ancestor's last name was Fowler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just gonna say that. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think not having those original roots, we adapt the roots from different things that resonate with us. I think in the same way that there is this give and take relationship when it comes to black entertainment, black culture that we've developed in our few kind of decades here in America, and the way they're pulling from us and we're pulling from them, I think we do resonate with Japan. I think we do resonate with Africa. I do think we do resonate with a lot of different places, but I think we're creating our identity here as a result of what we're seeing and developing from everywhere else.
So there's this really interesting perspective from Asia that one of our previous guests gave us.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Japan, and he was talking a lot about how, like, when in America, anime fans will talk about, oh, the sub versus dub.
Yeah.
They have the same arguments about King of the Hill.
Yeah.
They have, obviously, Japan and baseball has been well known, but they
Mm-hmm.
also really like college football and things like that. There's also a trend right now for them there's a style in which they can, like, heat and curl their hair
To get silver
afros
texture.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so you're seeing them pull from specifically African American culture,
Yeah.
not American general, specifically African American culture,
Yeah.
and then we're also pulling from them.
Absolutely.
And the world's getting more and more connected. Do you think that this would, like, once again, I heard Afro-May for the first time, and it feels like something that, it feels like that would be like an island somewhere. Like, this
Yeah.
is Afro-May Island, where it's like half Asian, half black people
Yeah.
are there, right? And since your style, you obviously pulling from the East a little bit.
Yeah,
Would you ever go over so you get invited to somewhere in Asia, would like give some lectures on, even lectures to show them some of your art?
Yeah,
and
we're actually planning to head to Japan in this next year in 20 for the first
Oh,
time.
if you're listening, you're from Japan. Watch out, they're coming. They about to go out.
We're gonna come to. I think that there's so much. For example, learning katakana, learning hiragana, learning kanji, learning how to speak the Japanese language, and navigating that with myself as an American artist. but also wanting to pay respect to Japan in the way. Because I would say, okay, Madison Company, our mascot is a lantern. And that stems from the fact that when I was a kid, I saw a lantern festival on TV, had no idea what that was, but after a while, I really started to resonate with Japanese culture. I really loved the way that they would highlight their culture. I loved the way that they created items. And a lot of our Western highlighted films, whether it be Western cowboy shoot-offs or just samurai standoffs, lightsabers are just samurais in space, Power Rangers are just Super Sentai. Like really learning where a lot of the origins of a lot of our Western media borrow from Japan has been really interesting.
To see the influences, even something, especially who was influenced by it.
Right.
Both Steven Spielberg and Jordan Peele have been putting in bids for years to do a live-action Akira. The person to get closest, ironically, is Kanye West. Even though the whole thing is really a reference.
Right.
Then you have things like, he's not technically only from Japan. He has some Korean background, but Satoshi Kon, who made the movie Paprika, that the American iteration of it is Inception.
Yeah.
Where some of the shots are shot for shot. How do you, instead of doing the shot for shot, you're taking those references and making them unique? How do you know, okay, this is the spin I want to put on this?
I think you naturally have your own deviations of what you like as an artist. And I think that helps me a lot, and one of the things that really has pushed Madness & Company as far as it is. I love when there's a collision of cultures. I think that's what a lot of people don't highlight enough. So, for example, when we were younger, we loved martial arts movies, but it wasn't that we were watching the
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang exactly was where I was going to go next. But it wasn't like we were watching the original movies. We were watching bootlegged, poorly dubbed,
in the barbershop,
Shaw Brothers movies, but it's like something about the poorly dubbed, something about the over-the-topness, but still the action being action-oriented kind of subject matter. All those things resonated, and that's what made the culture. It wasn't the streamlined, high resolution. It was the grittiness. It was the poorly dubbedness. It was the attempt to seeing those two cultures collide, and I think that's where the love is. Like, same thing with Wu-Tang. The hip-hop beats over with the Japanese undertones. It's where there's a medley, like a subculture is formed between those two. I think that's what I really love about it. Like, you'll hear us playing boom bap in the back of our ramen shop, but at the same time, I want to make sure that if I'm going to have the ramen shop vibe there, that I get true Chochin lanterns made, that I sew the northern curtains, that I create the roof tiles. Like, I'm actually taking the time to do the research, even though I haven't been there, but there's so many references that you can learn from and create it so that's authentic.
Information's so much more ready available.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to do it, make it authentic, but don't make it to the point where it's less you, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. And something interesting about Wu-Tang, I have a friend who's from Shanghai, and also, if you watch, there's an interview with Jackie Chan where they ask Jackie Chan, do you like Wu-Tang? And he's very confused. Like, what is Wu-Tang? What is that? But Wu-Tang's actually popular in China, but Jackie Chan for some reason didn't understand. And then I asked my Chinese friend, I was like, do you like Wu-Tang? And she's like, she saw the symbol on my chest. She was like, oh, they're awesome. I was like, oh, you like Wu-Tang? Yeah. And she gave me this very confused look. What is Wu-Tang? I was like, it's the symbol, it's what I'm wearing. It's actually supposed to be Wudong.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Wudong, and so if they would have said, like, it's Wudong, it's not Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
But it's that mistranslation that then it's okay. Now it feels like it's for us.
Yeah.
The different spin on it. It's been great to have you on. Where can everyone follow you and check you out?
Yeah, definitely. So again, we're Madness & Company. You can follow us at www.madnessandcompany.com, or you can follow our socials at Madness & Co. So that's at Madness and CO. Check us out. We'd love to have you be part of the community. If you have ideas, definitely shoot it to us. We have a Discord as well. You can hit us through our link tree. It'll be on our Instagram. And join the community. If you have art that you're making, hop in there. Let's talk. Let's compare ideas, and let's chat it up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Guys, this has been Film Center, and my name's Derek Johnson II.
I'm Kenny, and this is Madness & Company.
Yeah, and we'll see you later.
This has been Film Center on Comic-Con Radio. Check out our previous episodes at filmcenternews.com. Sign up for our newsletter and get the Hollywood trade straight to you. You can follow the show at Film Center News on all major platforms. Tune in next week for a fresh update. Until next time, this has been Film Center.